Good morning. This morning we are going to make some red velvet sourdough cinnamon rolls. I have never tried these recipes before, nor have I tried any red velvet sourdough, but we're going to give it a shot and hopefully it turns out because they're not for me. All right, so I have a list of ingredients here. Seems pretty manageable. We're going to start. I have in my bowl here 4 cups of just all purpose flour, and I'm going to add to it um, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, which I have measured out here, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 tablespoon of the cocoa powder, and let's see, I think that's it, salt, which I'm going to need to add to this today. And you know, I don't like to add salt when I bake, but I think these are going to be just a little too sweet to leave it out. So let me go ahead and grab that. Okay, so it's calling for 1.5 teaspoons of salt. I am not going to do all of that. I'll add probably 3/4 or half that amount because I don't love salt in baked goods. But again, this I think is going to need it. I am now going to mix this up. Let me grab a whisk. No, I have one here. All right. So I'm going to just whisk this together. Here. Just getting that cocoa powder all mixed in with the flour, the baking soda, the salt, and the baking powder. Okay. The next thing we're going to do, this recipe calls for 1 cup of sourdough discard or sourdough starter. So I'm going to go ahead and grab out my measuring cup, 1 cup here. I did restart my, I don't want to say restarted my starter, but I did kind of do something a little different with my starter. I am trying a different texture for my starter just to see. No problems with it. But here we are. This one looks good. And I still have 2 little containers that have some discard in it. So hopefully this is enough. It did rise overnight. And actually, I think this is going to be just a cup, which is going to be perfect. All right, let me move this so we can put it in here. And this I'm just going to dump into this pink measuring cup and hope for the best. I think if I'm just a smidge short, I'll be okay. But I may add some to it. Okay. Still getting a little bit out of there and some off the spatula. That looks like about 3/4 of a cup. I won't tell if you don't. I think it's going to be fine. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add this discard into the mix. And could this potentially change the outcome? Probably. Do I think it'll be okay? Hopefully. I think it'll be all right. Okay. Now, try to get as much out of there as I can. Scrape all the edges off and get that sticky, gooey mess right in the bowl. And let's see, I'll take every last little bit off the lid here too, because why the heck not? Right? You're close. It's good enough. All right. Now, this recipe also calls for buttermilk. And I don't buy buttermilk anymore because it typically goes bad. So I buy a dehydrated version of it and I just reconstitute it with some water. And so this is calling for, it has the measurements on the package. This is calling for half a cup of buttermilk and also half a cup of water. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just add a cup of water to this and mix that up. And that will be our buttermilk and our water. Okay, now this wasn't ideal. This was stupid of me. Kara, what's next, right? What is next? So this buttermilk, I haven't found a way. I mean, I'm sure I could use the immersion blender to get it super smooth, but for the most part, it kind of does leave some chunks in there. And, you know, I've had no issues with it. It will eventually spread to what it needs to be spread into. And everything has turned out a-okay. Okay, so this is pretty mixed together now. I'm going to go ahead and add this to my sourdough starter and the powdered solution. And then, as you can see, I don't know if you can see, there you go. There is still some stuck on the bottom. I am going to get that out. I should have just added the powder to the mix, the sourdough mix, and then added a full cup of water. I would have done the same thing, probably better. So that's done. The next thing I need to add to this is going to be honey. Of course, honey, because every sourdough recipe that I've made so far calls for honey, which is fine because I like it in sourdough. I do know that if I spray this, the honey will come out easier, but you know, what are you gonna do? So it does call for, I believe, a half a cup. Let's check the recipe. Oh goodness, it calls for a quarter cup. We almost made a mistake there. All right, let's get a quarter cup. And here, it's like twice as much. Could you believe? All right. Alrighty. And let's get honey is like the hardest thing to clean too. It's just so sticky. Okay, now honey in there, right? Liquid gold. All right, that's it. Now that I'm gonna need to clean that jar. And the last thing we're gonna add, because it's red velvet, we're gonna add red food coloring, which I know red dye 40 has been banned, which is great. I do still have some of the red dye, and we're going to use it. So it calls for 2 teaspoons. I'm not sure if I have a full 2 teaspoons, so I am just going to squeeze in what I have. I have, what is this? It's gel. It's a gel food coloring, which is what this recipe calls for. And it calls for 2 teaspoons. Yeah, 2 teaspoons. So I'm just going to squeeze it in there. That looks like a teaspoon. I'm going to say that's another teaspoon. And I had a darker red just in case, but apparently we're going to go for the bright red. All right, so this is what it's looking like. You can see it's already starting to change color down deep in the bowl. I don't know if you can actually see that, but you're about to. Okay, so I'm going to just mix this lightly because the next thing it wants me to do is just knead, and that's fine and dandy, but I would like to avoid my hands completely turning red and looking like I've committed a crime. So the only crime I'm committing is making people fat, I guess. Okay, so this is now at a consistency where I'm a little bit more comfortable grabbing it. You can see here on the spatula, super, super red, which red velvet, right? And it's got its name somehow. This is telling me, the recipe says to put it out on a floured surface. I will do that in just a minute, but I would like to also just get it a little more mixed in this bowl real quick. Okay, that's looking good. Now, it's saying a floured surface. I'm going to forego that and just put parchment paper down, which is actually going to be a little noisy, but I prefer it to having a floured surface because I don't really like to do stuff right on a counter, and I don't want to pull out a cutting board for this, especially with the red dye. Okay, so I have the parchment laid out. I'm going to go ahead and dump the mixture right onto the parchment, and hopefully we can get it all mixed up and ready to make some sourdough red velvet cinnamon rolls. Now this recipe, I am actually using different components from 3 different recipes. One for the actual rolls, one for the filling, and one for the icing. And it just is what sounded the best for me. Okay, let's keep it. Oh, there we go. Now this is seemingly not such a moist dough. It's requiring a little bit of work from me.
The more I worked with the dough, the more I could tell it just wasn't coming together how it should. It was pretty dry. I had to keep adding water. I was questioning the directions. It just didn't seem quite right. It also, you'll see later on, it didn't cook amazingly well. When I baked it, it kind of got a little dry and it kind of lacked a little bit of flavor. So going forward, I wouldn't choose this recipe for dough again. I would definitely choose the Farmhouse on Boone recipe and add cocoa powder and red food coloring to that.
Okay. So it is sticky. I do believe it said it would be sticky, but at least that's come together a little bit more. Now, I don't smell any chocolate in this. I feel like it should have had more cocoa powder in it. Okay, now the recipe specifically does say that the dough should not be sticky, which is kind of the point we're at right now, but actually it's getting less sticky. Okay. It's got layers in there, that's for sure. Okay. I'm sure you can hear me doing my workout for the day. This is making me sweat. Very, very difficult to work with. Okay, so there we have a nice red sourdough cinnamon roll dough. I'm going to go ahead and try to shape this into a little bit of a rectangle because this recipe actually does not call for a rise time or an extra ferment time. It is basically a make and bake. That's what it is. It's a make and bake. You know, it doesn't smell overwhelmingly chocolatey, which I guess is a good thing because the chocolate filling that I've decided to use on this, instead of just a regular cinnamon filling, I've chosen a chocolatey filling, is very chocolatey and includes chocolate chips. I'm going to get a new piece of parchment paper because that one is not okay for me to roll this out on. Okay. All right, so here's this. Let's get the rolling pin out. And we're gonna start rolling this baby and sweating our heinies off as we do it. Okay, so I am working to spread this out just a little bit to help out with the rolling situation. I don't know how I want to start this. I don't know. This one has me perplexed. Okay, so that took, I don't know, 5 minutes or so to actually roll out. It is probably about 1/4 of an inch thick, which is what it calls for. And I'm sweating. I am sweating. I love cinnamon rolls. Let me tell you, I love a cinnamon roll, but rolling cinnamon rolls out sucks every time. It sucks every time, but I think it'll be okay. We're gonna keep going. If it doesn't work out, I'll make them a different day because I'm gonna have to restart the actual starter or dip. This over here is looking a little thick, and that looks good. Okay, let me wash my hands and we can get started on the filling for this, which is chocolate and butter and butter and chocolate and butter, and nobody hates chocolate and butter, right? Nobody hates that. Okay, let me wash my hands and then we'll start filling it, roll it, and I'm gonna also look at the temperature and the time that this oven should be set at, okay? All right, here I have just over a 1/4 cup of melted butter. The recipe called for a 1/4 cup, but like I've said, who doesn't love butter and chocolate? So I have this. I'm going to actually just mix all the ingredients in here. The next thing I'm going to add in here is supposed to be 1/3 of a cup of brown sugar. I love brown sugar also, so it's actually, we can say it's a 1/3 cup packed. It's measuring out at about a 1/2 cup. The next thing I did put in here is cocoa powder and a little bit of cinnamon, as that's what the recipe calls for. And that is pretty much the filling on these cinnamon rolls. I like this little guy. All right. Ooh, that is chocolatey. This is where the chocolate must be in the filling. Okay, so this looks pretty good. Actually, oh, I'm supposed to add a tablespoon of flour. Sorry, it's still looking a little bit thin. Let's do sugar. So this is brown sugar. I'm gonna just add it a tablespoon at a time and see where that takes us. 1 tablespoon, it looks like one, maybe 2 tablespoons might be all we need. I think 1 more and we should be okay. Always heaping with the brown sugar, always heaping. Okay, yeah, that's looking better. That's more cinnamon roll like. It smells divine. Really lovely. I would actually go as far as to say that this is actually still a little bit liquidy. So I'm at a crossroads here because I think the butter, you know what, it's probably from being in this glass. Let's just go with it. We'll just go with it. Now, just like with anything else, as it cools down, it'll get thicker, which is good.
Here I am spreading out the filling, cocoa powder, brown sugar, butter, deliciousness. I also discover that, first of all, the red velvet dough looks like ground beef, which is not appetizing, but also that I'm gonna run out of filling. So I do end up making a second batch because this doesn't spread over the whole thing, and nobody wants a cinnamon roll that's just dough with no filling.
Okay, so I have the second batch of this filling mixed in now. I may have put a little bit too much cinnamon, but that was totally an accident. Just kind of dumped in there, but you know, some bites might just be a little more cinnamony than the rest, which is an adventure. We're just gonna call this a dessert cinnamon roll culinary adventure. Okay, let's go ahead and spread this out. I can already tell this color looks a little bit more brown than the first filling I dropped on here. Looked dark, dark, dark. So now I have to chocolate chips. How could I forget? This recipe also calls for a half a cup of chocolate chips.
The chocolate chips I did have were milk chocolate chips, but they're a little bit too big. I probably would have gone with a mini chocolate chip in the future and actually add more and completely fill it out. But this is what I had, so it's what I used.
Last thing that I need to do is roll and butter the pan. I'll just do it like this. Hold the stick and rub it in there. Again, who doesn't love butter, right? Okay, that's done. I have my dough cutter here, and let's roll. Let's see how this goes. So the oven is 375. The recipe says, or the directions say, for 18 to 20 minutes. Do I think it'll take longer? Yes. 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 I don't know. We shall see. So this is not actually holding very well at the edge, so you can see. Usually you can just pinch it and it'll hold in that spot. The oven's going mad. I'm gonna start right in the center. That looks centered. And hopefully not hit a chocolate chip because that'll really throw a wrench into my plans. Okay, so it's definitely chocolate. It's definitely red. I don't know how much these will end up rising. I don't know how much they'll end up expanding. We will see. So it looks like it might make 10. Oh, that was through a chocolate chip for sure. Maybe 12. Okay, so here it is. It looks like this. I like to just shape them before I put them in the oven, so that way as they cook, this I could see the chocolate chips right on top. As they cook, it still has that nice cinnamon roll look to it. All right, and I think I'm gonna put 8 in the pan and hope for the best. Here you can see that chocolate chip that cut through. And see right here, I don't know if you can see that right here, it's squeezed from that bread cutter or that dough knife. So I just pull it away and give it back its little cinnamon roll shape there. It smells divine. It smells very, very good. Okay, let's there's that. Now I'm going to go on to this side. Okay. Okay. See, you can see the chocolate chips in that one. I could see 4. So this is going to go into the oven for 18 to 20 minutes. All right, so it's been 20 minutes. This is how they're looking. You can see that they've expanded and popped open. You can see the ones in the back there, how that's popped. And then I think because the dough itself was a little dry, they split. So I've never had that happen with regular cinnamon rolls. Did with these. You can also see that there's chocolate that has spread out onto the bottom. So tons of chocolate in there. And I'm going to take these out and put the next batch in. All right, so the 20 minutes has passed. I'm going to go ahead and pull the first batch out, and then we'll put these ones in. I did squeeze those last 2 in pieces in, so this one does have 8. We'll see how it does. I may just scoop them out with the spatula and shove them in nice and tight and frost them all and send them as one tray with probably still 8, but 8 big ones. Okay, so here they are. You can see that there's definitely chocolate and butter at the bottom. These will be covered in icing. I'm not overall happy with how they came out, but maybe they'll taste nice. I don't know. We'll see. I may have to find a new recipe. All right, let's put these ones in and get these ones going. Okay, the cinnamon rolls are done. I tried one. I think they're going to be okay with frosting. Next time I would definitely use a different recipe for the actual dough. The filling is good. I know for a fact the icing is good because I've had it on the regular cinnamon rolls that I usually make, and that is tasty. So the ingredients for that: vanilla from the heart. It calls for a half a cup of cream. I don't have cream, I have milk. I have used milk in the past. I think this time I'm just going to use a little bit less milk. It calls for a half a cup of milk, but it comes out a little bit thin, and I think these need a little bit of a thicker icing. And then it calls for a half a cup of maple syrup, 6 ounces of cream cheese. I know this is an 8 ounce, but I feel like cream cheese icing is like butter and chocolate, right? You can never have enough cream cheese icing. And then I will do this on the stove, and then I will immersion blend it towards the end so that it thins out nicely. Let's get cooking.
Okay, this cream cheese icing I absolutely love. It is from Farmhouse on Boone's sourdough cinnamon roll icing recipe. It calls for 6 ounces of cream cheese, which I use 8, a half a cup of cream, which I use milk, but a little less than a half cup, a half a cup of maple syrup, and then I pour vanilla from the heart. This is a Farmhouse on Boone recipe. It goes with her sourdough cinnamon rolls, and honestly, it is unmatched. It is so light, but so tasty. It will thicken as I take it off the stove, but here I've already done the blending with the immersion blender, and now I'm just waiting for it to thicken a little bit more. And to do that, I'm going to take it off the heat.
Okay, we're back. So I have waited about a half hour. The icing has gotten thicker, so I'm happy about that. The filling of these is very good. The icing is good. The actual dough itself, not my favorite. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to be pretty generous with this because because they deserve it. All right, so they're so yummy. This icing could make anything better, I think. So I think I'm just gonna pour the whole thing on. And again, they're not for me, but if they were, I would eat them with all the icing. The birds are very chatty today. Okay. This maybe is a little, let's spread that. Okay. And spread that a little. And even this out here. And let's get this one a little more covered. Okay. All right. I'm happy with that. They look delicious. Okay, and that is our red velvet sourdough cinnamon roll adventure. Thanks for hanging out. I guess subscribe, like, do what you want. Maybe I'll see you back again soon. Bye bye.